Hi, friends. Happy Thursday. Mrs. Hoffer here to work with you today on today's English language knowledge lesson. Let's get started. Friends, so far in this unit, we have been learning all about Christopher Columbus and the voyages he took when he was trying to make his way to Asia to find treasure to bring back to Spain. And instead ended up finding new land, the Americas. We're going to continue reading about Christopher Columbus and the European voyagers today. Friends, the goal of today's lesson is that you'll know what happened when Columbus tried sailing west on other trips after his original trip in 1492. You'll understand why we remember or celebrate Columbus on the holiday called Columbus Day. And you'll be able to draw a picture afterwards that describes one of the journeys that Columbus took across the seas to try to discover the Indies. Let's get started on today's activities. Now, I want to review a little bit from the read aloud yesterday, in which Christopher Columbus was very happy because he thought he had reached the Indies in Asia. When Columbus began exploring, he didn't find as much gold as he had expected, Keeble Cubs. Remember, friends, Columbus did not even find Asia or the Indies, but an entirely different continent and group of people who we see in this picture here. So, as we know, Keeble Cubs, unlike other explorers of the time, Columbus had this idea that he could sail all the way westward to end up in Asia. And he was kind of right. You can sail westward and end up at Asia, but the issue is there is land in the way. So he sailed directly in this direction from Europe and made it to the Americas, which is what he actually ended up thinking was the Indies, because this land was not yet discovered by the Europeans. So the two continents that were blocking his path from making it all the way, because there wasn't actually just water, were North America and South America, Keeble Cubs. And remember, Keeble Cubs, like we just said, it's important to realize Columbus didn't realize he made this mistake because the land was completely unknown to the Europeans. It was undiscovered, and he thought he was actually in the Indies when he landed in the Americas. Now, Keeble Cubs, I want to do a little check on your understanding of what we've learned so far about Columbus and his explorations. So, Keeble Cubs, can you tell me who was Christopher Columbus? That's right, Keeble Cubs. He was an Italian explorer in a long time ago, over 500 years ago to be exact. And Keeble Cubs, can you tell me who were King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella? Who were they and where did they rule? That's right, friends. So they were the king and queen, the royal family members of Spain. They ruled, they were the leaders of Spain at the time. Good job. And Keeble Cubs, what did King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella do for Columbus? Do you remember? That's right, friends. They gave Columbus money and ships so he could make his sailing voyages and find a new route to the Indies by going westward when all the other explorers before had traveled east. Good job. Next, Keeble Cubs, can you tell me, what did Columbus actually do? He didn't end up getting to Asia when he traveled west. What did he actually end up doing? Good job, friends. Columbus sailed west and landed in the Americas, but he thought he had landed in the Indies. Columbus claimed the land he visited for Spain, collected gold and other treasures, and returned to Spain with the gold and treasures from this unknown land that he thought was the Indies. Good job, friends. And Keeble Cubs, can you tell me, what did King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella do when Columbus had returned with the gold and other treasures? That's right, friends. They named Columbus the governor, so the ruler of the lands he had claimed for Spain. And he told them that he could sail back there. So not only did they make him governor of this land, but they gave him permission to go on another sailing voyage. Cuba Cubs, do you remember earlier on this year we had a domain about the Native Americans? So we learned about the different American tribes that used to live in and still live in America, and Native Americans. So they were the people that were originally from this land. Cuba Cubs, these are some of the people that we're talking about and learning about as we learned about Columbus and him discovering Americas and the fact that it had actually already been here and there had already been people here for thousands of years. Indigenous people, so native people, lived on the continents of North America and South America long before, like I had just said, long before European explorers like Columbus visited and settled in this area. There were many, many different tribes of Native Americans in the Americas, each with its own way of eating, dressing, and living, depending on the particular region or area where the members of the tribes lived. Another term people sometimes use for Native Americans people, Kibo Cubs, is American Indian. It's important to know that the people Columbus met on his first visit to the island of Hispaniola in 1492 were not Indians from India, but were native people from the Taino tribe. The peaceful Taino people lived in large huts around a central plaza where they had meetings and ceremonies and where their children played group games. There were thousands of Taino tribal people who had been living on the island of Hispaniola for a long time before Columbus had landed there, Keeble Cubs. The term American Indian, Keeble Cubs, came about because Columbus mistook the Taino people, the Taino tribe, for Indians from the Indies because that's where he thought he had landed. So they are not Indian, they are Native Americans, but they got this name American Indian because they are Americans, but they're Columbus thought they were Indians because he thought that they had landed in the Indies. Okay, quickly before our read aloud, Keeble Cubs, we have one last activity. We're going to do a thumbs up, thumbs down. Tell me, thumbs up if you agree with my statement or if it's right, and thumbs down if it's wrong. Keeble Cubs, tell me, were the people that Columbus met native to India? Is that where they were from? Thumbs down, friends. That's right. They were not from India because he had not landed in the Indies or Asia. Good job. Were the people that Columbus met native to Hispaniola, Keeble Cubs? That's right. Thumbs up. They were native to Hispaniola or the Americas, where Columbus had actually landed. And Keeble Cubs, were the people that Columbus met from the Taino tribe? Thumbs up. That's right. Good job. And last question, were the people that Columbus met new to the place where he had landed? No, that's right. They were not. Columbus was new to the place he had landed, but the people were not. They had lived there for a long, long time before he had ever arrived. Good job, Keeble Cubs. All right, friends, we have made it to today's read aloud. The story we are going to be reading today is called Further Adventures of Columbus. After the read aloud, Keeble Cubs, you will describe what happened after Columbus made other trips westward after his original one, and you'll be able to explain why we remember him on Columbus Day. You'll understand also the word ashamed. Make sure to pay extra close attention, Keeble Cubs, to the story to hear what happened to Columbus on his other journeys and to find out if Columbus ever found what he had set out for. Let's get started on the read aloud. When Christopher Columbus set sail from Europe for the second time, he commanded not 3, but 17 ships. In comparison to the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, that's a lot of ships, my friends. He told himself, I will return to Hispaniola and find the men I left on that island waiting to help me. He will find the wealth of Asia and be rich. Everything seemed to be working perfectly. But the most important word in that statement is seemed. In fact, this time Columbus was sailing straight into trouble. What do you think is going to happen when he gets there this time, Keeble Cubs? Reaching Hispaniola, he found that the fort his men had assembled from the wooden planks of the Santa Maria was gone. There was no sign of the sailors that he had left there either. Something was terribly wrong. Columbus spoke with a few of the native island people, whom he still insisted on calling Indians. He learned that while he was away, the Spanish crew had been unkind to the native people and had taken advantage of them. If you were taking advantage of people, Keeble Cubs, you were treating them unfairly for selfish reasons. Columbus had originally come in peace, but his greediness and the greediness of the sailors had changed things on the island. The men who had sailed with Columbus on his second voyage also treated the natives badly and were just as greedy for treasure. Once more, Columbus and his crew took advantage of the natives. They were forced to work for no pay, carving mines into the high mountainsides. There is gold in these mountains, Columbus and his men told one another, and we did not sail all this way just to leave it there. But they did not find as much gold as they had expected. Cuba Cubs, why do you think they didn't find that much gold? Because they weren't in the Indies, in the continent of Asia. That's right. When Columbus returned to Spain from the second voyage, the king and queen did not like the report that he had given them. Isabella said, "We will let you sail a third time for us, but you had better find spices and more gold this time." On this third voyage, Columbus thought, "Surely this time I will find a city rich with gold and spices like those I have heard about before." But all they saw were jungles. Why won't he find the Asian cities, Keeble Cubs? Because he's not in Asia. That's right. During his search, Columbus became very sick. Weak and discouraged, he ordered his men to head for Hispaniola. When they got there, Columbus was surprised to find that a nobleman sent by Ferdinand and Isabella was waiting for him. The reason the king and queen had sent the nobleman was because they'd heard after the second voyage that Columbus was treating the native people cruelly and was keeping the gold for himself. The nobleman had been ordered to spy on Columbus and to arrest him if this turned out to be true. Indeed, the nobleman heard from many people on the island how Columbus and his men had mistreated the native people of Hispaniola. The nobleman announced, "Christopher Columbus, you are being charged with keeping all of the golden treasures for yourself, and therefore doing a terrible job as governor. The king and queen will decide your fate." Columbus is going to jail, Keeble Cubs. They didn't have jails in Hispaniola at the time, so Columbus had to be taken all the way back to Spain. Columbus sailed the long journey home from Spain, not as the ship's commander, as he had once been, but as a prisoner heading to jail. He wondered how he would be greeted by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. What do you think the king and queen are going to do, Keeble Cubs? And what do you think is going to happen to Columbus? At first, when Columbus arrived in Spain, he was thrown in jail. Later, when he appeared before the king and queen, they were shocked by the difference in the man they now saw before them. His hair had turned completely white. His body had grown bent and weak. And the man who had boldly stepped forward in the past now limped in their presence. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were ashamed. Ashamed Keeble Cubs means they felt badly or guilty for what they had done to him by arresting him. They took pity on Columbus and ordered that he be released from jail. They set Columbus free and ordered his share of the wealth to be returned to him. Their Majesties shattered Columbus's dreams of returning to his former importance by announcing, "You are free, but you will no longer be governor of our new empire." An empire, Keeble Cubs, is like a kingdom, and it includes the people and the places ruled by a person or country. All of the places that Columbus explored were lands that King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella now ruled, just as they ruled Spain. They put someone new in charge of Hispaniola and the lands beyond. The king and queen told Columbus, "We will give you one last chance to find the wealth of Asia." They gave him a few old ships, and that hardly seemed strong enough to make it out of the harbor onto the open sea. So Columbus took those rotting Spanish ships safely across the Atlantic. Keeble Cubs, tell me, how many voyages has Columbus been on now? Sailing up and down the lush green coast, he searched once more for the Asian cities he still believed must be there. Of course, they were not, and not finding them, he did not go ashore to explore. Discouraged, Columbus returned to Spain once again without the gold and spices he desired. Keeble Cubs, tell me, why couldn't Columbus find the Asian cities? Because he wasn't actually in Asia, that's right. He was where? In San Salvador in the Americas. Good job. He was where? He was in the New World, the Americas. Good job, friends. Christopher Columbus never set sail again. He died believing that he had found the Indies, but other explorers disagreed. They had realized that, instead of Asia, Columbus had actually found a piece of land that Europeans had never known about between Asia and Europe. Because they had never before known about this place and it was new to them, they called it the New World. All right, Keeble Cubs, that is it for today's read aloud. I hope you liked today's story about Columbus's other trips westward. Can you tell me, Keeble Cubs, what happened in October of 1492? That's right, friends. This is when Columbus sighted land on his first voyage and came upon the Americas. Even though he didn't know that that's where he was, he thought he was in the Indies. Good job, friends. Keeble Cubs, next, can you tell me, why did King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella want to put Christopher Columbus in jail? What had happened that made them want to arrest Christopher Columbus and bring him back to Spain? So that's right, Keeble Cubs. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella wanted to put Christopher Columbus in jail because not only did he not bring enough gold back to Spain for them, but himself and his crew, they both really mistreated the Native American people. So the people that were native to the lands that in Hispaniola where he had landed. Good job. Friends, can you tell me now, how did the Columbus and his crew exactly mistreat the native people? How did they act cruel towards them? There can be several different ways to answer this, Keeble Cubs, but one of the reasons is while Columbus was back in Spain after his first voyage, his men who stayed on the island treated the natives badly and made them work very, very hard for no pay. The men continued to mistreat the natives even when Columbus returned as governor, so he didn't stop them. They made the native works as enslaved people. So they were enslaved means they were forced to do it, Keeble Cubs. And like I just said, they were not paid in exchange for their really, really hard work. And that's pretty cruel, if you ask me. That's definitely mistreatment. Keeper Cubs, now tell me, what happened to Columbus when he returned to Spain after his second voyage without the riches he promised the king and queen? Well, friends, that's right. The king and queen thought he was keeping gold for himself and sent a nobleman to Hispaniola to spy on Columbus. Later, the king and queen had Columbus arrested and thrown in jail for not bringing enough gold and for mistreating the natives. Now, Keeble Cubs, can you tell me, did King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella free Columbus from jail? And if they did, why? That's right, friends. They did free him for jail because they felt ashamed of how they had treated him. So they felt guilty about the way he had treated him when he had helped them grow their empire. So their kingdom, the place that they had ruled. Spain now ruled over all the lands that Columbus and his men had took over. Keeble Cubs, today we know a lot about Columbus because of historians, people who study the past. Our country remembers Columbus on Columbus Day, October 12th. Why do you think we remember Columbus on that exact day, October 12th, Keeble Cubs? Why is that day important to Christopher Columbus? Good job, friends. That's right. We remember him on October 12th because that is the day in 1492 that Columbus sighted land on his first voyage into the Americas when he was trying to find the Indies. Good job, friends. Cubs, in the read aloud, you heard King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were ashamed of how they treated Columbus. Say the word ashamed with me. Ashamed. Good job, friends. Ashamed, Keeble Cubs, means feeling bad or guilty for something you have done or because of how you may have treated someone. You might feel ashamed, Keeble Cubs, if you grab a toy from a baby and the baby starts to cry. Are there things Columbus and his crew did for which they should have felt ashamed about, Keeble Cubs? Are there things they did or ways they treated people that they should have been ashamed about? And if there was, what were they? Pause the video and respond to this. And when you respond, tell me by using the word ashamed. Your responses should sound like Columbus and his crew should have felt ashamed when, and tell me the instances that they should be ashamed about. Good job, Keeble Cubs. That's right. There were definitely different times that Columbus and his crew should have been ashamed of their behaviors. Keeble Cubs, remind me, what's the word we've been talking about? Ashamed. That's right, friends. Good job. Keeble Cubs, for our last activity today, our last little test of our knowledge on the read aloud, I'm going to read some phrases to you. And if that person in the phrase might feel ashamed, say he or she should feel ashamed. If the people wouldn't be ashamed, Keeble Cub, you respond, he or she should not feel ashamed. Let's get started. A boy who takes a piece of gum from his mother's purse without asking. That's right, Keeble Cubs, he should feel ashamed. Girls and boys who tease other children. That's right, Keeble Cubs, they should be ashamed. You should not tease other people. What about a girl who wins her basketball game? Should you be ashamed about that? No, Keeble Cubs, that's right. She should not be ashamed. She should be proud. Next, Keeble Cubs, a woman who honks her horn impatiently at people crossing the street. She should be ashamed, friends. That's right. And lastly, Keeble Cubs, tell me, a man who writes a great story, should he feel ashamed or should he not feel ashamed? That's right, friends. He should not feel ashamed of that. That's also another thing he should be proud of. All right, Cuba Cubs, speaking of proud, I am so proud of all the great work that you guys have done. We are now done today's lesson, and you should know key facts about Christopher Columbus and the other voyages that he took after his original one in October 1492. You should understand why we celebrate Columbus on the holiday Columbus Day in October 12th specifically. And finally, Keeble Cubs, you should know key details of Christopher Columbus's other journeys now, so you can now go into your travel journals and draw a picture that illustrates one of Christopher Columbus's other journeys. Great job, Keeble Cubs. See you later.